this is the new for 2021 Royal Enfield Himalayan, and as part of the upgrade you get this new pine green color, which honestly looks better in the flesh. You've also got the tripper or the tripper dial, which is borrowed from the Meteor for the truly adventurous, and to accommodate this tripper dial, which is easily the epitome of afterthought on the Himalayan, is this new fairing. And there's also talk about this fairing improving the wind buffeting, but we'll find out. And for really taller riders, they have redesigned the luggage hanger, so when they brake, their knees don't go into it, and you've got a new tail rack with a plate on it to make loading easier. Otherwise, this is exactly the BS6 Himalayan, and we've done a detailed review of that. So what we thought, we will instead talk about the Himalayan in greater detail when it comes to, or see it as a commuter, a tourer and an off-roader, and we'll tell you what works and what doesn't for the Himalayan in these three situations. So let's start with the city. Now, given that I'm an optimist, we're going to start with the good things about the Himalayan when it comes to the city. And first thing is that it's a low bike in the sense that you can comfortably swing your leg over. And when you do, it's very easy to put both your feet firmly on the ground. I am in these boots 5'9", and it's no trouble for me at all. Also the seating, it's more upright. The foot pegs are slightly rear set, but they're low, so you're not cramped in any way. You can sit comfortably. The bars are wide, you have good leverage even at slow speeds. And the visibility, because you're sitting straight up, of what's ahead is good too. So all of this helps when you're filtering through traffic. What also helps is the really tight turning circle. So it's very easy to make U-turns with the Himalayan, especially given that it's well balanced, so it doesn't tend to tip over. So these are good things and handy things when you're living with the Himalayan in the city. It's also got a comfortable ride courtesy its soft and long travel suspension. So be it mildly undulating roads, pronounced road joints, or a series of potholes, if you happen to have a bad back, the Himalayan might just be your friend. Now, among the things that we don't like about the Himalayan, especially when it comes to the city, is first, the clutch pull. It is heavy, so with one finger, at least with my strength, it's almost impossible for me to do it. With two, it becomes easier, but three is when it feels the easiest. But again, it's heavy, so it's going to leave you with aching wrist. Same with the brake. It needs more power for this sort of weight of the motorcycle, so you have to lean on the brakes a lot more. If there were more power, it would be easier to use the brake stop and go. So here again, the wrists start hurting. And then, like I said, weight. Now it is heavy, so which means that when you're commuting and you end up parking the bike at a slight angle and you want to take it back, it's very, very difficult to push back, or if somebody comes in front, it's a narrow lane, it's troublesome. You can do it, you can get off and pull it back, but it's inconvenient. And then if you want to put it on the center stand, because of the weight and the design, you need to hoist it up, which isn't very easy. At least for me, it isn't. Back to the good things and credit where it's due. The tail rack, it is handy, especially if you're going to put a top box. You can just undo these and fix your top box there, so it's quite handy there. But if you choose to put soft luggage like we did, then you have to take this out and put it away, and that requires some effort. So we were just lazy and we just used the seat to strap the soft luggage on, but it is helpful. You can work that. Then of course the seating ergos, again, even for highway use, are good on this motorcycle. You can spend long hours just sitting, nothing feels uncomfortable, your arms don't start to ache, your backside remains okay. The seat, they've changed something in it, so it's I think slightly denser foam, so it remains more comfortable for longer. Now even if your backside starts to hurt, even with this seat, at first signs of trouble, you can always stand up and ride. The Himalayan allows you to do that. It's very easy to grip the motorcycle, whether you choose to do it with its side panel, or whether you choose to use the tank. Handlebars, again, they're not too low, so you don't have to bend too much. You can still remain pretty upright, at least for my height. And you've got these lovely foot pegs. So these are wide, and they've got rubber on them, so they remain comfortable. Your underside of the foot doesn't start to hurt, so you can continue to stand and ride for longer hours, and then when things get better, you can sit down and you can go through this process repeatedly. And with the sort of range that the tank promises you, you can continue to do this all the way. You can ride from tankful to tankful, which is always great on an adventure motorcycle. Speaking of tanking up, the range is decent if not great, and the Himalayan can do up to 350 kilometers on a tank full, which is more than adequate. The engine is a boon on long rides too. You can't exactly sit at 120 kilometers per hour while cruising, but a 100 kilometer per hour cruise with still a bit in reserve to carry out overtakes is easily doable on the Himalayan. And the engine itself, it doesn't get too loud, too hot or too vibey. One can comfortably do 700 to 800 kilometers in a day without breaking any speed limits. The negatives, meanwhile, include lack of a sixth gear. The engine, if you really rev it, can get noisy, and the wind protection, even though better than before, is still not good enough. Then you have the brakes. They need a serious upgrade. One has to start braking early, rely on the rear at times, and use a lot of right wrist strength to get them to work as effectively. And lest we forget, it doesn't get tubeless rubber, and that poses a whole set of problems of its own if you land a puncture, both in terms of effort required in finding a place and getting the puncture fixed, and the sheer boredom that comes with waiting to get it done. This here is my worst nightmare. Now, if the motorcycle is light, if it's a dirt bike, it's much easier to pick up. But imagine if you've been riding for 2 hours, this is nice and flat. I still have my makeup on, so I'm still fresh. But imagine if you're tired and there's a bit of slope around, and then you have to pick up a motorcycle. Clearly you want something light. The Himalayan is not, but we're going to attempt and see how easy or difficult it is to pick up. All right, so it's, I guess if you know the technique, which I'm not very clear on, but if you know the technique, then it's not going to be that difficult. Yes, it's heavy, but oopsie. Yeah. So it is heavy, but like I said at sometime in the video before, that it is well balanced, and that really helps. So I'm already out of breath. So yeah, it is difficult for me, but it can be done. Then there's the suspension travel and the large 21-inch wheel, which means unexpected bumps off-road won't send you flying into oblivion. And in case you want to indulge in some tomfoolery like jumping the motorcycle, it will more often than not land smoothly and comfortably. It has decent grunt too, does the Himalayan engine. So taking on steep inclines or riding a flat trail quickly, or just trying to power slide for fun, isn't too much of a chore. Having said that, it's not exactly the easiest thing to do. There are other negatives too. The Himalayan is heavy and it is softly sprung. That means it runs out of clearance a lot sooner than one would expect or want. The heavy clutch plays spoiled sport too, adding fatigue to the mix. And the gearbox, though it shifts all right, it can be clunky at times, and that can pose a bit of a problem off-road. So what do we think about the Himalayan as a commuter, as a tourer, as an off-roader? We think it works. Now, of course, it has its own set of challenges and shortcomings, but then which motorcycle doesn't? Now, the reason to buy the Himalayan, you have to be very clear as to why you want to buy it. If you want to get out of your city confines, buy the Himalayan. If you want to take in your surroundings, buy the Himalayan. If you want to get to your destination but not race to it, buy the Himalayan. And if you buy the Himalayan for these reasons, we believe that you're going to be very happy with your purchase.